And we are back. Welcome to my predictions for the FA Cup fourth round. In this video, I am going to be covering all 16 matches taking place over the course of the next 5 days, as 32 teams vie out for a spot in the fifth round, of which 2 have already qualified for a spot at Wembley after Newcastle and Liverpool both secured their spots in the EFL Cup final over the course of the last week. As always, before we get into these videos, if you haven't done so already, please do consider dropping a like on this video if you do enjoy all of my prediction series, and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. We have got all of the Champions League, Europa League and Europa Conference League playoff predictions coming for you at the start of next week before we then return to Premier League action once again. And then let's look ahead to the FA Cup prediction screen, where firstly you will see at the end of the third round our results are as follow: 22 out of 32, so a pretty good opening attempt for the FA Cup this year, and 3 correct scores. And once again, you will see on the prediction page that for every single team that is taking part in the FA Cup this weekend, I am telling you what league they are in and what position they are in their respective league tables, so you have the best possible understanding of how these teams are performing coming in to all of these FA Cup fixtures. And without any further ado, let's just get straight into it. The opening game takes place tonight. It is between Manchester United and Leicester City, which of course means post-match reaction to the Manchester United-Leicester game at around, well, I'm going to say hopefully 10 PM, but if it goes to extra time and penalties again, probably a bit later. But there will be a post-match reaction whatever happens in tonight's match. And we'll start off by saying that Manchester United got to this position by beating Arsenal on penalties. That was, of course, at the Emirates. Leicester got here by beating QPR 6-2. The big name in this fixture is, of course, Ruud van Nistelrooy, who is now the Leicester City manager. This is actually Leicester's 3rd visit to Old Trafford already this season. But on both of the other occasions, Ruud van Nistelrooy was the manager of Manchester United, of course, interim between Erik ten Hag and Ruben Amorim. And on both of those occasions, it was Van Nistelrooy who came out on top, United winning 3-0 and 5-2 respectively in the EFL Cup and in the Premier League. So the question really is, can Leicester do any better in their 3rd visit in just 4 months? Well, neither of these sides are playing that great at the moment. Obviously, Leicester lost again at the weekend following their surprise victory away at Spurs. They are still lost 7 of the last 8. For Manchester United, after a reasonably good run of form, they once again succumbed to defeat at home, this time 2-0 to Crystal Palace. And it's come at the expense of Lisandro Martinez as well, who has suffered an ACL injury and will be out for the remainder of the season at least. Not to mention that once again Luke Shaw has picked up an injury before even getting back into the team. United will have the likes of Dorgu available though, and a couple of the other new young signings are apparently going to be included in the squad for this game. It's unclear whether or not Van Nistelrooy is going to rotate his side, because he's not actually had the opportunity to do so yet as the Leicester manager, but we shall see. In my head, Leicester's primary focus is going to be on survival. They're in 18th place. They're going to want to stay up in the Premier League, so maybe it's in their best interest to sacrifice a cup run to prioritise staying in the Premier League, but we shall see. Regardless, at home against a side in the relegation zone in the Premier League, surely Manchester United should be coming out on top here, even if they do make changes to their starting lineup. I'm not going to go crazy though. I'm just going to go for a 2-1 win for Manchester United. On to Saturday, and there are 2 early kickoffs on Saturday, and the first of those is near enough guaranteed to be a bit of a punch-up, because it is league leaders of the Championship, Leeds United, taking on mid-table Championship side Millwall. Now, Leeds got here by beating Harrogate in round 3. Millwall got here by beating Dagenham and Redbridge. For Leeds, they are 14 games unbeaten now and actually haven't conceded a single goal in any of their last 6 matches. For Millwall, they're unbeaten in their last 4 and have won all of their last 3, which has actually seen them move way away from the relegation zone. They were right in the relegation scrap just a few weeks back, but a good run of form has seen Millwall pull themselves out of that relegation fight as things stand. And most crucially, earlier on this season, Millwall have beaten Leeds, so there is some precedent for the away side to get a result here. But what I would say is that they haven't won at Elland Road since 2018, and Leeds have won every single matchup between these two sides at Elland Road since. Millwall have got a fair few injury concerns coming into this, but made no less than 6 signings since their last match. So could have a whole host of new players to call upon. Leeds made no signings over deadline day and only have 1 injury in their entire squad. That is Patrick Bamford. Other than that, they've got their whole first team available. They're the league leaders in the Championship for a reason. I would expect them to get a result at home to Millwall. I'm going for a 2-0 victory to Leeds. The other early kickoff sees the side currently 6th in League One, taking on the side currently 5th in the Premier League. We are, of course, talking about Manchester City. Leyton Orient got here by winning against Derby on penalties, which I think is a good result. City beat Salford 8-0 with basically their academy team. And to be honest with you, I don't really think I need to say much more about this prediction other than that. If you want more info, they've got more players back from injury since then. The only players missing now are Rodri, Oscar Bob, Ruben Diaz and Jeremy Doku. The rest of their squad is fit. And since that 5th round match, they've spent 200 million on 5 new signings that are all fit and available for this fixture as well. The expectation is, of course, that they will change their entire 11 following that 5-1 defeat to Arsenal last weekend, which maybe is playing on some of those players' minds. But unfortunately for Leyton Orient, it's the perfect opportunity for Manchester City to feel a little bit better about themselves by spanking a team that is considerably less in quality than they are, with the greatest respect to Leyton Orient. To be fair to them, they've got home advantage, they've got no fresh injury concerns, and of course it doesn't really matter if they win or lose this. They're in the playoff hunt in League One, they're playing some decent football at the moment, so we shall see. But ultimately, this is what Manchester City do. They don't struggle against the teams from the lower divisions. I'm going for a 5-0 win to Manchester City. On to the 3 o'clock kickoffs then. The first of those sees Frank Lampard's Championship Coventry City taking on Kieran McKenna's Premier League hanging on 19th place Ipswich Town. For Coventry, they beat Sheffield Wednesday on penalties and have won all of their last 4 matches up until they lost the league leaders Leeds in midweek, which again isn't too much of a disappointment. They are top for a reason. Ipswich beat Bristol Rovers 3-0 in the last round, but have lost all 4 of their Premier League matches since that victory in the 3rd round by an aggregate scoreline of 14-2. And that includes losing at home to Southampton, the bottom side in the Premier League, last week. So if there's going to be an upset, or like if there's going to be lower league opposition taking out a Premier League team, I think this is probably where you want to be looking as the most likely for something like this to happen. That said, Ipswich did win both of the Championship matches between these two sides last season by a scoreline of 2-1 on both occasions. However, Coventry could have the likes of captain Ben Sheaf back in their starting lineup for this one, whereas Ipswich are still going to be without the Championship top goal scorer from last season. Sammy Smodics is unavailable for this one. For me, the Ipswich lineup is the key for this. If they play their full first team, I still think they should be considered favourites. But like what I said with Leicester, like it is, they're going to rotate with their priority being survival in the Premier League. And I think that is where Coventry are going to be able to capitalise. I'm not confident enough to say Coventry win it in 90 minutes, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw and say that beyond 90 minutes, Coventry come out on top. So at any point, if Coventry win the match, I will still get the prediction right. I'm going for Coventry, but I'm going for a 1-1 draw in 90 minutes. That then takes us to an all-Premier League clash as Everton take on Bournemouth, and it's been 3 wins out of 3 for David Moyes in the Premier League since taking over, after Leighton Baines and Seamus Coleman masterminded a victory over Peterborough in the last round. For Bournemouth, their unbeaten run, which was an incredible unbeaten run, came to an end in a controversial and bizarre game against Liverpool last week, with some people questioning the penalty decision. Certainly me questioning how Justin Kluivert missed that open goal at 1-0. But they also got here by beating a Championship side. They got here beating West Brom 5-1. And what's more scary is that they beat West Brom 5-1 with a completely rotated starting lineup as well. So again, it could be interesting, because if Bournemouth do make changes again for this fixture, I think you have to consider Everton the favourites. Now, When you look at the head-to-head, these two sides have already played both of their Premiership matches against each other this season, and Bournemouth won them both. However, both of those matches were against Sean Dyche's Everton and not David Moyes' Everton. So we can't really look into that head-to-head record too much. Neither side have any fresh concerns coming into this, and both sides have actually made some pretty interesting deadline day signings. Carlos Alcaraz is back in the Premier League, the former Southampton man. He is now at Everton. Meanwhile, Bournemouth have a new striker to call upon. They have signed Krupi. So either of those could play. For me, I think with the form that Everton have shown under David Moyes, especially at home, I just think if Bournemouth are going to make changes, Everton should be considered the favourites of this one. I'm going to go for a very narrow 2-1 win to Everton, but the likelihood is Bournemouth should still be considered favourites. Next up, it is Preston taking on Wycombe Wanderers. Preston got here by beating Charlton and were unbeaten in all of their last 5 matches until they lost to Blackburn last week. Wycombe are currently unbeaten in all of their last 5 matches, which does include their victory over another Championship side in Portsmouth in round 3. However, that game was at home. This one is obviously away to a Championship side. But both teams are on pretty good runs of form at the moment coming into this one. Jordan Storey is an injury doubt for Preston. Meanwhile, Sonny Bradley is going to be missing for Wycombe. He is suspended following a red card in their last match against Cambridge. Preston, to be fair to them, despite being 15th in the Championship, actually haven't lost a single game at home in the last 3 months. So it is a real tough ask, even for a side playing as well as Wycombe in League One, to go to a Championship side away and get a result. However, Wycombe do have the best away record in League One. So there's definitely a chance for them. For me, this is going to be a very, very close one. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw in 90 minutes. And I'm actually going to go for Wycombe to edge it in extra time or penalties. But we'll see. A very, very close one to call. And speaking of close ones to call, our next 3 o'clock kickoff is Southampton, currently bottom in the Premier League, taking on a side just 2 places below them. It depends how you want to look at a fixture like this. Are Burnley a division below them, or are they actually just 2 points behind them? And let's be honest, Southampton, okay, we said they've been playing better recently. They finally got an away win with the result against Ipswich, and of course, they did beat another Championship side in Swansea City to get into the 4th round of this FA Cup. So maybe there's a little bit more momentum coming on the Southampton side. Burnley, however, have only conceded 1 goal in all of their last 10 matches. And that was the 1 goal they did concede against Reading in the 3rd round of the FA Cup before going on to win 3-1 in extra time. They are playing some outstanding football at the moment, and their defensive record is, well, it's probably the best in the world at the moment. I can't check that for certain, but it's probably the best in the world with 1 goal conceded in 10 games. What I would say is I still think that with what Southampton did last week, my expectation would be that they play a very similar lineup this week as they want to try and build momentum, as they've got to still believe they're in a fight for survival. And if they don't, then, well, let's go have an FA Cup run if we know we're getting relegated. So I would expect Southampton to play their strongest team, but I would also expect Burnley to play their strongest team because of how well they're playing at the moment. It's going to be a very, very interesting one, but with what I've seen of these two sides, no fresh injury concerns for either, I'm still going to go for Burnley. I'm not convinced enough by how Southampton have played over the last few weeks that they can actually get a result against a side playing as well as Burnley. But this is why we have to assess the gap between the Premier League and the Championship. But I'm going for a 1-0 victory to Burnley. Next up is a match that could not be any closer. 18th in the Championship versus 19th in the Championship. And both sides got very impressive away wins in the last round, both getting away wins at sides currently occupying playoff spots in the Championship. Stoke won at Sunderland, Cardiff won at Sheffield United, and since then, certainly for Cardiff, they have actually gone unbeaten until they lost 7-0 to Leeds last week. So it again makes it so hard to split these two sides. Stoke have not been on a great run of form recently, but like we just said, Cardiff lost 7-0 to Leeds last week, albeit off the back of a good unbeaten run. Stoke do have a fair few injury concerns as well. The most recent injury concern for them is Gooch. He went off injured in their last match and could be missing for this one. For Cardiff, they are still without former Arsenal and Juventus man and Wales international Aaron Ramsey. He is still going to be injured for this one. These two sides actually met in December at this stadium, and it was a 2-2 draw. But I still think, after what happened last week, I have to go for Stoke in this one. I think it's going to be very close once again, but I'm going to go for 2-1 to the home side. But watch this space. Cardiff, incredible result to win at Sheffield United in the last round. Can they do it again? Still keeping things with the 3 o'clock kickoffs. And we have one final 3 o'clock kickoff to go, and that is Wigan Athletic taking on Fulham. League One versus the Premier League. And look, Wigan, they won at Mansfield. Fulham breezed past Watford 4-1 in the last round, and that was with a fully changed lineup as well. And kind of like what we said with Manchester City, there isn't really too much more that needs to be said. If you want any more information, Fulham obviously then won away at Leicester, they won away at Newcastle, and Wigan have only won 1 of their last 4 since that victory over Mansfield in the last round. And to be honest, they're just not having a very good season, Wigan. They're languishing in mid-table in League One. They're closer to the relegation zone than they are to the playoffs. Fulham, 9th in the Premier League. They've made some new signings. They managed to get Willian back in the club on deadline day as well. They've got Harry Wilson and Tete out injured, but again, even if they change their starting lineup, they've got a very talented squad, and they should just be beating a side like Wigan. With the greatest of respects to Wigan, this would be an incredible upset if they got the result. But personally, I don't see it happening. I'm going for a 3-0 victory to Fulham. On to the first of 2 late kickoffs on Saturday. This is the 5:30. I think it's actually a 5:35 kickoff for some reason between Birmingham, City and Newcastle. I'm assuming that's in case some of the other games go to extra time. But it's Birmingham against Newcastle. And again, it's League One against Premier League. But I think this one has a much larger chance of an upset potentially occurring. Birmingham are 18 matches unbeaten, which includes victories in the second round and the third round of the FA Cup against Blackpool and then against Lincoln. Newcastle got here by beating Bromley in the last round, but then they did go on that poor run of form, losing consecutive home games to Bournemouth and to Fulham. But they did bounce back with an incredible performance and a 2-0 victory over Arsenal in midweek, which did secure them that spot at Wembley. And I think Eddie Howe will definitely want to encourage his side to push for a second cup final this season if they can get through the remaining rounds. What I would say, though, is that in that Bromley game, he changed his entire team. And I would expect him to do so again. They've literally just played a big semi-final against Arsenal, and I think he'll want to rest his first team. And that is where I think a side that is 18 games unbeaten, albeit in League One, can capitalise. I do think there is a massive chance for Birmingham in this game. In terms of injuries and suspensions, there are no fresh concerns for Birmingham, whereas Newcastle have lost Joelinton and Harvey Barnes. I would expect this to be close, but even if Newcastle change their full first team, I still think the Premier League quality will shine through in the end. Again, for the 3rd or 4th time in this video, I'm going to go for a very narrow 2-1 victory to who I believe to be the favourites, which is Newcastle. But I'm going to go for 2-1. But watch this space. Do genuinely think Birmingham have a great chance of producing a result. And then finally, we have the 8 o'clock kickoff on Saturday. It's Brighton and Hove Albion taking on Chelsea. Brighton won 4-0 away at Norwich in round 3. Chelsea 5-0 victors at home to Morecambe. However, coming into this, Brighton have lost their last 2 matches in the Premier League, which did include, of course, that whopping 7-0 defeat to Nottingham Forest last week. More on them later. Chelsea have lost only 1 in 4 since then, and that was, of course, the away defeat to Manchester City. Both sides, incredibly, will be playing each other next week. This is the exact same fixture in the Premier League next week. It's the Friday night game next week, so I think both sides will probably play their strongest lineups. Certainly in terms of a Chelsea perspective, Enzo Maresca tends to have a team that plays in the weekend fixtures, then another team that plays in the midweek fixtures. So I would actually be surprised if we don't see Chelsea's strongest lineup coming into this match, especially given the fact that these two sides are playing each other again next week. In terms of new signings, Brighton have picked up Sismas, I can't say that name properly, whereas Chelsea have not brought any new players in that I think will come straight into the first team. I know they signed a new 19-year-old defender, but they have let João Felix go on loan to AC Milan. So Could be a couple of changes to the starting lineups, but it wouldn't surprise me if both sides go for their strongest team. Chelsea won the fixture in the Premier League at Stamford Bridge by a margin of 4-2, and actually have won all of their last 5 matches against Brighton. So with that being said, I'm backing them to get the result once again, especially given the fact that Brighton did lose 7-0 last week. I'm going for a 3-2 victory to Chelsea. On to Sunday then, and just the 3 fixtures on Sunday. The first of those sees Blackburn Rovers taking on Wolves. Blackburn have actually lost 4 of their last 5 matches since beating Middlesbrough in round 3. For Wolves, they've lost 3 of their last 4 since winning at Bristol City, but to be fair to them, did get that victory at the weekend, 2-0 over Aston Villa. So they're going to have a little bit more confidence coming into this one, and of course have already proven that they can go away to a championship side and get a result in the last round. Both of these sides actually played their full first teams in the last round of the FA Cup. So my expectation would be both sides play their full first teams again coming into this one. Both sides are carrying a few injury concerns, but neither of them have any fresh concerns coming into this one. Again, like I've said with a few of the other fixtures coming into this, my expectation is even with Blackburn being 5th in the Championship and Wolves being in 17th in the Premiership, I would expect the Premier League quality to come through in the end. So even though I'm going for yet another 2-1 victory, I would expect this one to be slightly more comfortable than some of the others I've mentioned. I think Wolves take this one 2-1. Then we have the game between another Championship side and another Premiership side. But this time, it's the worst side in the Championship against the best side in the Premier League, certainly this season. However, for new manager Miron Muslic, it's been a draw and a victory for Plymouth against two teams currently occupying playoff places in the last 2 weeks. So for the Greens fans, there is definitely a chance, or the Green Army as they like to say, there's definitely a chance that they're going to feel some confidence in that they could potentially get a result against Liverpool here. And of course, these results have given them a little bit of a boost in their survival chances in the Championship as well. So I would actually expect Plymouth to play their first team here. Kind of like what we said with Southampton. They're trying to build momentum. They're trying to build consistency in a fight for survival. So giving a free hit against Liverpool in the FA Cup, you might as well play your full first team. For Liverpool, of course, victory for them in the last round. I'll go over Accrington Stanley, a 4-0 victory with a completely changed lineup. And speaking of 4-0 victories, it's exactly the scoreline they got last night in the EFL Cup semi-final, absolutely blowing away Tottenham, as predicted by yours truly. And even if they make wholesale changes for this match, you would still surely expect Liverpool to get the result over Plymouth. The final point that I will say is that Plymouth in the last round did win away at Premier League Brentford. So there is still the slightest of chances that they could produce something here. But that is definitely my Manchester United bias talking, as I'm desperate for Liverpool to not win all 4 trophies this season. I thoroughly expect Liverpool to win this match, even if they do change their entire lineup. I'm going for a 4-1 victory to Liverpool. And then the final game on Sunday sees Aston Villa taking on Tottenham. And if you want to talk about how to pick form and momentum coming into this, Aston Villa beat West Ham in round 3 by a very narrow margin. Tottenham beat Tamworth in extra time. Since then, Villa have played 6, won 2, drawn 2, lost 2. Tottenham have played 7, won 3, lost 4. There is just nothing to really go on coming into this fixture other than looking back at the head-to-head record, which says that Tottenham won the fixture in the Premier League so far this season 4-1, and the last time they met at Villa Park, Tottenham also won 4-0. So maybe that gives them a little bit of impetus coming into this. But they just lost 4-0 to Liverpool last night. So, there really isn't a lot to go on. The good thing for Aston Villa coming into this is even though they did lose 2-0 to Wolves last week, they've signed Marcus Rashford, they've signed Marco Asensio, Amadou Onana should be back in midfield. So I would expect that they are going to be a little bit stronger than this Spurs side here. To be honest, I was not impressed by Danso last night. Tell made little to no impact off the bench last night for Spurs either. So their new signings aren't particularly looking good. They've just been blown away. I think I think if they lose this match, again, I don't know how Ange hasn't already been sacked this morning after the promise of delivering a trophy has now seemingly gone again. They lose to Aston Villa. Surely he has to be gone. But we'll see. My expectation is that Villa should be considered favourites, especially given the fact that they are the home side. So I'm going to go for 3-2 to Villa. I'm going to expect goals. I have to expect goals in a Tottenham match. There always is. And to be fair, Villa's defensive record hasn't been great of late, even at home. So 3-2 to Aston Villa. Could be a chaotic one. Could be one that goes all the way to extra time and penalties. But we shall see. That then takes us to Monday night, where we have League 2 Doncaster Rovers taking on Premier League Crystal Palace. For the Donny, it is 4 wins in a row after beating Hull City on penalties in round 3. For Crystal Palace, it's 3 wins and 1 loss after beating Stockport in the last round. And to be fair to them, they have kept 4 clean sheets in their last 5 matches, which does include that victory over Stockport. The only goals they have conceded were in the 2-1 defeat that they suffered, I think, to West Ham. Was it 2-1 or 2-0? I can't remember. They lost to West Ham, but those are the only goals they've conceded in their last 5 matches. So Oliver Glasner's side playing some very, very good stuff at the moment. And he does tend to keep his entire fully fit first team available for him. He changes the goalkeeper, but the outfield team tends to be the best, whatever the opposition. So with that in mind, Eberechi Eze is expected to come back into the starting lineup for this one. For Doncaster, no fresh concerns to them. They are playing very, very well at the moment. But again, I've said it a few times. At the end of the day, this is a League 2 side taking on a Premiership side. This would be an incredible upset if Donny can pull this off. Personally, though, I don't see it. I'm backing Palace to win again. I'm backing them to get another clean sheet. I'm going for a 2-0 victory to Crystal Palace. And then finally, on Tuesday night, we have Exeter City taking on Nottingham Forest. Exeter got here by beating Oxford in the last round, but since then have drawn 1 and lost 4. Nottingham Forest got here by beating Luton 2-0 and then have won 2, drawn 1 and lost 1 since then. Of course, losing 5-0, but then bouncing back with a 7-0 victory over Brighton last week. To be honest with you, if Exeter get the result here, the only result I think that would be a bigger shock than Exeter beating Nottingham Forest would be Leyton Orient beating Manchester City. I think that is the scale of the task ahead of Exeter at the moment. Like, Forest beat Luton 2-0 with a fully changed team. And with the greatest respect to Exeter City, they're near the bottom of League 1. Luton are near the bottom of the Championship. It's another entire division down. Nottingham Forest, even with a fully changed team, should be comfortably beating Exeter City. And speaking of Luton, they actually took Exeter City striker Ali on deadline day. So they're going to be without him coming into this as well. For Forest, Hudson-Odoi is still a doubt, but I don't think he'd have played anyway. Ultimately, I'm just dragging this out for the sake of dragging this out. Nottingham Forest should definitely be winning this match. I wish Exeter all the best of luck, but personally, I just don't see it happening by any stretch of the imagination. I'm ending the 4th round predictions with a 4-0 victory to Nottingham Forest. And that is going to be it for the video. As always, a massive thank you very much for watching. Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments section below. It's going to be another crazy weekend of FA Cup action. And something I don't say enough, let me know anything I've missed down in the comment section below. I saw someone mention about Harry Wilson being injured in the comments of the Premier League video I posted last week. I forgot to mention that. So if there's any bits of information that you think I've missed, let me know down in the comment section below. A massive thank you very much for watching once again. I'll see you very soon.